Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be kicking off a brand new series where I try and combine two of my biggest loves, books and health and fitness. And this is where I'm going to review some new health and fitness books, starting off with a book that might be vaguely familiar to you, and that is How Not to Die by Michael Greger. I haven't come up with a series name yet, so let me know in the comments if you've got any suggestions. Book club, book talk, fit books, ready, steady book? No. And I have got a little giveaway at the end, so make sure you stick around for that. One of the first videos I made on my YouTube channel was a 3-part series about the sister book to this, which is How Not to Diet, and I made a kind of intro, a perfect what I eat in a day, and then a kind of before and after situation. This is not the same book. One sec. These are two completely different books. My phone. These are two completely different books. They are not the same book, which I think did genuinely confuse some people based on the comments I got on my How Not to Diet video. I did actually first read this book when it was released in 2016, so it has been quite interesting to delve back into it a good few years later whilst I was doing some research for this video. So first things first, what is the book about? I think this was the first book that Dr. Greger released, and in it he looks at the 15 leading causes of death in America and breaks them down sort of one by one. And in the breakdown he tries to demonstrate how they can be cured or at least helped by lifestyle and diet interventions, which, spoiler alert, mainly focus around a plant-based diet. The strapline of the book is discover the foods scientifically proven to prevent and reverse disease. Oh my god, how many takes is it going to take me to get that right? The book is basically split into two sections, well I guess three. Part one is all of the different diseases and some evidence about research that's been done about them. Part two is then the general diet and lifestyle advice that you really could just apply to anyone regardless of whether they've got any pre-existing health conditions. And then part three is just references, and there's a lot of references, like this many references. It's like, you know, what, a third of the book? And it's in part two of this book where the daily dozen concept gets introduced, and I think that concept is a great tool for knowing, you know, ways you could improve your diet and foods that you might want to prioritize in your diet, especially if you're somebody who is vegan for, you know, either ethical or environmental reasons and you're looking to try and make it a bit healthier. Now, this is absolutely not a light read by any stretch of the imagination, and I wouldn't say it's particularly accessible either. It's 562 pages long, which is almost as long as the Deathly Hallows, but not quite. And even though 150 pages of that is citations, it's still quite a wordy book. I personally think it's packaged up quite nicely, but we'll get on to some of the criticisms in a minute. Having said that though, all of the stuff that's in here I'm pretty sure is published on his website nutritionfacts.org, which you can just access. But the way the book is split up is that, for example, if you were just interested in the section on blood pressure, you could look at the start, high blood pressure 122, and there's the section on how not to die from high blood pressure, and then you can just flick through that if that's all, you know, if you're looking for something specific. I do think, in my opinion, that Dr. Greger does do a pretty good job in breaking down all of the scientific literature, or maybe not all, but some of the scientific literature that's available for each of these conditions, and breaks them down in a reasonably digestible format. I will say though that I'm a master's degree educated engineer, so I'm probably not the greatest benchmark for whether or not a book is too sciencey. A lot of the 1 to 3 star reviews on Amazon certainly paint the picture that there are plenty of people who don't find this book particularly accessible. So that is something to bear in mind if you are tempted to read this book. So let's get on to my criticisms of the book. The Amazon and Goodreads reviews are overwhelmingly positive, but there are some criticisms that you could level at this book, and they get drawn out in a lot of the lower ratings. And they basically fall into two categories from what I can see, and it's complexity and bias. So I kind of talked about the first one already, but it is quite long and it is a quite complicated book when I look at it objectively. I didn't find it particularly difficult to read, but as I mentioned, I've got a science background. It does quote a lot of scientific research and it does try and break them down into tangible conclusions, but I'm also not sure that this book is really aimed at everybody. I don't know. And I think the other main criticism that you could level at the book, and it is leveled, it is mentioned in a lot of the lower rated reviews, is that it comes across, and probably will come across, as quite biased. And that is biased towards a plant-based or a vegan diet. Now, as somebody who is an ethical vegan and has been an ethical vegan for about 5 years, that didn't really bother me because I was reading it as somebody who was already a vegan. So that is another thing to note. But if you read through particularly some of the Amazon reviews, it really does get some people properly riled up. And I can understand this criticism, and I think it's a reasonable one, because at no point through the book, from what I remember, do you get presented with any evidence to the contrary. So you get a lot of, you know, petri dish studies or, you know, systematic reviews, but it doesn't usually say, oh, and there's this evidence over here that directly contradicts this conclusion that I've made, but this is why I don't think it matters. But given how long and complicated the book already is, I can see why they might have chosen not to do that. And I think any book that's trying to present you with a specific argument is always going to come off a bit biased. So it's definitely always useful to acknowledge your own bias and the bias of the author when you are reading a non-fiction book like this. Would I recommend it? Yes, I probably would. I don't think the Daily Dozen is the answer to everybody's health and weight loss prayers, but I think it's a really good concept to base your diet around. And my diet has genuinely been positively and permanently influenced by the Daily Dozen concept. It is responsible for my undying love of oats, my daily consumption of flax seeds, my not as regular as it should be supplementation with B12 and D3. It's the reason why I try and eat berries every day, and it's the reason why I exercise every day. And greens, how could I forget greens? It is the sole reason that I consume as many greens as I do. So it really is responsible for, I would say, how healthy the overall context of my diet is now, even though I don't follow the principles to the letter. And as I say, if you are trying to improve the content of your diet, I think the Daily Dozen concept is a great methodology to do that, especially because you can use it to add things into your diet rather than remove them. It is probably going to be a good way as well of improving your diet without it feeling restrictive. But to be honest though, you don't need to buy the book to do that. You can just download the app for free, or probably find it on the website. Especially if you're not that bothered about why these foods are being recommended, because nothing in there is massively controversial. Having said that though, if you are just genuinely interested in some of the science around nutrition, I think you'll probably like this book, or certainly it'll get you thinking even if you don't agree with it. And I am trying to have a bit of a clear out of my life right now. So if you've stuck with me until the end, leave a comment down below of a suggestion for my new book review series, and I will arrange to send you my copy, so it's not brand new, but my copy of this book wherever you are. Let me know what you thought of the video and give it a thumbs up if you liked it. If you've read the book, I'd love to know what you thought of it as well, so I'll meet you in the comments. I hope you have a really lovely week, and I will see you soon.